There we go. OBS is continuing to be the bane of my existence, but what streamer doesn't have issues with OBS? Hmm?
Yeah, and did see. I don't know if I did see that Twitch is starting a beta OBS.
Hmm.
Yeah, you might look on Twitch. They might have an actual. They've got like a beta thing going on. Not quite sure exactly what it is, but
Have to look
of
into some
course,
stuff. I just need to look into like OBS training in general,
yeah.
just so that I can
Well, but
better
if Twitch
use
has
it.
got something, then maybe that'll be more user friendly because you're putting it on Twitch. So,
Right.
it
I don't know.
might be
I haven't
something to
had
look
too
at.
many problems. I haven't had too many problems with OBS. It's just
Mhm.
sometimes it does silly things,
Yes.
but that's just OBS. But hi, hello,
Hey,
welcome, good evening, welcome once more to A&M Talk D&D. As always, I am Ash King,
I'm Michael Cross.
and we are here tonight to finish up Chapter 3 of
Yes.
Van Richten's Guide to Ravenloft. Last week we actually did finally finish our journey through the Domains of Dread.
hmm
Um, gosh, that took us how many weeks?
yeah, it took us. Well, it is, and it's designed to be that. Was actually one of the longest ones for me to read as well because you just really want to dig into each one of them.
Yeah, there's
And
so
you know,
much. There's so
and
much.
just my 2 cents on that as well. I do want to mention that there were two that I thought that could be great domains of dread that were not mentioned anywhere in there. One is Oz.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, you've got a place basically surrounded by mist. Now, if you go by the books, which because in the books it's not someplace up in the clouds, somewhere over the rainbow. It's this land that you can't get to in any way by except for by air. It's
Right.
completely surrounded. And then I thought Labyrinth,
Ooh.
where
Yeah.
Jared is the dread lord of the
It
domain.
yeah, you get like some sort of powerful archfey
Mm-hmm.
who's been corrupted somehow.
Yeah.
Ooh, that's a good one.
Yeah,
That's a
and
good
that's
one.
why at the very end, even though he gets defeated at the very end, he's still there as the owl. You can't kill him. He's the dread lord of the domain.
Mhm. Mhm.
You know, and there was an actual story I saw on that I wish I could find it again on the web about more of a tragic look at who Jared is and why he is the way he is.
Mhm.
Wish I could find that again because that'd be a great way to explain why the labyrinth is, the way it
Right.
is.
I mean, there's been so many hot takes on Labyrinth over the years, and talking about it.
Mm.
It's definitely one of my personal favorite
Yeah, oh yeah.
fantasy flicks. Like, I have at least 3 different copies of the movie.
Because you had to change it when a format changes. You had VHS and then DVD and then Blu-ray and then yeah. So,
Same thing with Dark Crystal. Those
yes. Oh
two,
yes.
those two are my jam. I'm not. I will admit that yes, I also own at least 3 different copies of the Dark Crystal.
Mhm.
And it changes. I have like one of the original like 2000s DVD release that has one of the coolest features ever in a movie, which is one of the audio tracks. You can completely get rid of all the dialogue. Yeah, yeah, yeah. You get rid of all the dialogue. All the dialogue is gone. All the sound effects are gone. All you are left with is the score, and you can
Oh
watch
my
the
gosh.
yeah, you can watch the entire film with just the score.
Wait,
And
Labyrinth or
Dark
Dark
Crystal.
Crystal?
Because Dark Crystal,
That's
I will I will
amazing.
I will defend it to the death, but I personally think that Dark Crystal has one of the best movie scores of all
And
time.
I don't even know who does the movie score for.
Um,
And I'm usually pretty up on,
Give me just a
yeah,
second because I have it
because
on my.
I'm pretty up on. I mean, I love, and I don't even know if
So I
I
want to say it's
could.
Trevor Williams.
Oh, really?
I want
Okay,
to say. I want to say that. Trevor Jones.
Trevor
Yeah,
Jones.
Trevor Jones did the original, and he also scored. Trevor Jones also scored Labyrinth as well.
Okay,
Um,
it was the Jim
but
Henson stuff.
yeah, because he did he did the Henson films. But of course, Labyrinth, it has all of the David Bowie numbers, so Mr. Bowie was very influential in the overall
Yeah.
sound of the film, anyways. But you know, rest in power,
Yeah.
BJ.
Yeah. Yeah.
um, but
Way
yeah,
before his time.
and
Yes.
actually, I would even say, if you wanted to build a labyrinth, like if you wanted to build a domain based off of Labyrinth, I would highly encourage that person to go and listen to David Bowie's last album, Black Star.
Mhm.
Especially if you watch the music video um, for Black Star, it's almost it's almost a love letter to
Mhm.
Labyrinth, and like
Wow.
the way there's like certain visuals in that music video where it's like it looks like Jareth's Labyrinth,
Oh.
but some odd years down the line after it's gotten like dilapidated
Mhm.
and just run down. And no, that would be an interesting. I would like to see that.
Yeah.
My personal one that I'm actually thinking about building something off of. So I'm a huge Final Fantasy fan, if you didn't know.
Mhm.
Um,
Check it out every Sunday.
check it out Sundays, Lazy DM Day. Currently playing Final Fantasy 9. Just got to the part with Kuja where Kuja is introduced for the first time. The one of the main villains of the piece, and Kuja, I love them to itsy bitsy little bits.
Mhm.
Kujo was my gender fluid awakening. That's when I realized, wait, you don't have to be a
Yeah.
boy or
Yeah.
a girl. um, but so for about the 25th anniversary of Final Fantasy as a series, they released a game called Dissidia. And Dissidia is where it was like one hero and one villain from each of the games. In the first game, it was just games 1 through 10. And then they did a sequel, Dissidia Duodecum, where they did get to add in, they added in a few more characters, and they added in like Lightning from 13. And then the most recent release, Dissidia NT, which is based off the Dissidia arcade game, which came out in Japan. Much more successful in Japan, didn't work out as well over here, but we're not going to get into that right now. That's a conversation for another time. They did bring in Noctis from 15. Well, of course, the concept of that is you've got one hero and one villain from each of these different worlds that has been put into this never-ending conflict.
Mhm.
And so I really like kind of the Colosseum aspect of that. And I think if
That's very
you,
cool.
yeah, I think if you did a domain of dread that was basically kind of that similar thought process where it's a Colosseum, and you have I would have basically two Dark Lords, kind of similar to Dissidia, because in that you had Cosmos, who was this goddess of light and beauty, and trying to fight off chaos. The god of chaos and darkness and destruction. Of course, um, in T, they're replaced with Materia and Spiritus, who have now created their own universe. That literally the energy of that universe is fueled by conflict.
No.
So if you want the universe to continue existing, you have to keep fighting.
Oh gosh.
Yeah. There's a lot of like it's one of those games I kind of at least the original two games, Dissidia and Dissidia Duodecum. Really, you actually only need to play Dissidia Duodecum because within Duodecum it was actually a remake of Dissidia.
Uh,
So that's the only one you gotta play. So just get your hands on a PSP, play Dissidia Duodecum. You won't regret it, I promise. And just ruminate on the possibilities.
yeah. The only Final Fantasy I ever played was four. So
Four, four is a good choice.
yeah,
Four is
it's back in the original, yes,
um
8-bit.
yeah, I love and that's something we might just have to do like a separate podcast about is my um all of my different deep dives into because originally 4 was actually released in the US as 2.
Was it okay? See, now that was I was when I say four, I might have been six because
Who was the
uh
main hero?
it was four. I mean, you could play that was when you could play the dark mage and I mean it was just the four characters that you could play, and it was I mean Nintendo had it, and it was
Yeah,
it
because
wasn't really
so originally the way what happened was in the US, so in the US, Final Fantasy 1 came out, which or the original Final Fantasy, the first one, and that was where you got to pick like you picked 4 out of um white mage, black mage, red mage, fighter, thief, and then the monk. And you picked 4 out of that to make your team at the beginning, and then you kept that same team throughout.
yeah
Um, and you could name them whatever you wanted, and they were basically they were just avatars for yourself. There's a storyline. Then in Japan, 2 came out, which actually had the first like officially named characters. Because it had Firian, Maria, Guy, and then you had a rotating 4th character.
mhm.
So and there were a whole bunch of different characters that would rotate into that 4th character slot throughout the storyline. Then 3 came out in Japan, and 3 had kind of a similar setup to 1, where you had 4 characters and you got to pick what class, or they actually refer to it as jobs. So
Hmm.
you would find different jobs as the story went on, and so you could swap out different abilities for the characters. Then 4 was kind of the same thing as 2, where you had a set cast of characters that had set classes, except for
Right.
Cecil, he swapped.
Yeah, I
Cecil,
think that's the one I played. Of
yeah,
course,
Cecil,
again, it
Cecil
was
swapped. He started as a Dark Knight, and then halfway through the game he becomes a Paladin.
yeah. It was about 30 years ago. So
Sounds about right.
all I remember is the music, which
I mean, the
and
music is fantastic.
oh, it's incredible. And it was my first love of with that, and of course got me into Zelda and all the others. Just the idea of an RPG based. I mean, granted, it's not officially RPG because you really can't do any. I mean, but it's fantasy.
I
And I'm
mean,
like,
literally it's referred to as a JRPG, which is
yeah,
Japanese RPG,
yeah,
which obviously are a little different from like what Americans think of as a RPG.
right,
Because with our concept of an RPG, we want one where we can completely customize.
yeah,
Like we want to completely customize the character, and then not only that, um, we want to be able to make our own kind of like dialogue choices
right,
in our RPG games. We usually get a set of between 3 to 5 different dialogue choices
yeah,
that we get to pick how our character reacts out of a limited number of
right.
choices. But no, I'm a huge um, I'm not too big into Zelda. I've never really been too big into Mario, but you know, you plop down a Final Fantasy, and I'm like, okay, let's go.
Yeah, and I'm that way with Zelda. I can play just about anything. I love it. Yeah. Zelda's my jam, definitely.
Well, so that we don't have to rename this
Yes.
this chat show. Instead of A&M
Let's
Talk
talk old
D&D,
video games.
it's A&M Talk Video Games, which is perfectly fine if that's what the people want. But I think
Right.
the people came here for D&D.
Yes. So we ended up with talking about the myths or talking about the different domains. So we immediately then go into who can go between the domains.
The
And Travelers in the Mist is
Traveler.
a fantastic. Just look at who will you meet on your way, but also it was this one that made me really think this is the game I want to play,
Mm-hmm.
not the game I want to run. But it is definitely the game I want to play. I want to be a traveler in the mist and go to different
So
places.
Michael is to Domains of Dread as Ash is to the Underdark.
Yes, yes, exactly. Because you would much rather be playing in the Underdark than running it.
Just
Yes,
let me play a salty drow.
yes.
I'll
And
hold
I,
you
it,
out of life.
that's right, because it's so much easier to be in the dark and just be in the away from all the crap up above. They're all horrible people up above.
I don't I don't want to be where the people
That's
are.
right. It's
I don't
so
want to
much
be.
simpler down here.
But yes, so the different travelers of the mists, and these are
Mhm.
specifically different, not necessarily player groups, but depending on how you wanted to run the campaign
Mhm.
and the kind of stories that you wanted to tell with the campaign, these are definitely people and groups that you should keep in your back pocket, um,
Right.
based off of kind of how you want to do it, and then also to really inspire, your player characters, especially if you are planning to run kind of a domain hopping campaign.
Right.
Um,
Right. I thought what I mean, it would be interesting to see, and I love what they've done with the Vistani. Because again, we talked a little bit about last time that they just did not get the love that they should have. But it really kind of fixes that in this, and they become more because they're more planeswalkers. They're a little bit cooler. And the fact that they can go just, yeah, we're going to go over to here, we're going to go over there, and we'll help you out if we need to. And, if you're good to us, we'll take care of you and, shelter you if we need to. But I thought a party of Vistani would be very, very fascinating because especially since you can still play some different races. But the idea that you are raised amongst the Vistani and kind of have that idea of, I know these mists are not that it's not just a wall. I can travel through it to another place, and that's part of their lore. So I thought an entire party of Vistani would certainly be an interesting way to build a domain hopping game.
yeah, I don't know. I have kind of a weird. I don't necessarily want to call it a hang up, but just a um I don't know. Like, I like the Vistani as a concept. I don't know if I would want an entire player party.
Mm-hmm.
Because one of my things when I'm running certain types of campaigns, especially I think if I was running a Ravenloft or Domain of Dread campaign, for me, it's much more interesting for you to be fish out of water
Right.
and to have to kind of think on your feet and learn how to deal with this versus, if you had been among the Vistani for some time, you wouldn't have that same kind of it wouldn't be the same kind of experience. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
Like,
I think the only thing is you could do it. You could still do the fish out of water if you made them like trainees. Here's your quest. You have to go into to where
yeah,
each
kind of more of a I could definitely see it as maybe like a um maybe if it was something where you were being inducted or like adopted
initiated.
into
Yeah.
like a Vistani group, and
Yeah.
they were like, oh, okay, in order for you to actually become part of our caravan, you have to prove yourself by doing X, Y, and Z, then
Yeah.
I could see that, but I don't know if I would want to. I mean, and again, me personally,
Yeah.
um, I just don't. Um, I don't know if I would want to run it where it's like you had always
Right.
been Vistani, but
Right. And I
um,
think that was I think I was thinking about that same way also with the circle, the party of the heroic knights. That basically you could be, okay, to be initiated into this, you have to go into the mists and conquer something as just an initiative or as an initiation, but then something goes horribly wrong.
mm-hmm.
Maybe they can't find their way back. They keep going to a different domain to try and just get back home. See what I'm saying? So I
Yeah,
think, and then they don't know where they are. They don't know how to get back.
yeah, yeah. I think my thing more, I would actually be maybe a little more interested in uh, running something involving the Keepers of the Feather,
Mm-hmm.
because that to me, um, I don't know. For some reason, I like the idea of like agents of the Keeper of the Feather.
Yeah,
Um, I mean, but also just where ravens are cool in general. So
that's
fight
true.
me.
It's kind of like Harper's and Dread.
Yes.
Basically you've got these spies that are going in and out and trying to figure out, making sure that there's no imbalance or anything like that, but keeping tabs on anything. And of course, again, the other one is you could also just make a mix of these.
Mm-hmm.
Where you got a player character who's Vistani, one who's part of the order. That way can mix more with the fighter, cleric, mage,
Yeah.
rogue
Well, I mean,
maybe.
it is still one of those things. Your justification for your class coming from a certain place is only as limited as your imagination.
Right. Mm-hmm.
So, you know, I mean, as we've talked about in the past, I have a wizard whose background is entertainer,
Right.
and she's a divination wizard. So she reads she reads people's fortunes
Right.
and that's how she gets her money, but she's actually good at it because she's a divination wizard.
Right.
And yeah, so again, it's like your justification for your class coming from a certain place or from a certain order
Right.
really is only as limited as your imagination. So
Exactly.
um I don't have as many problems with that as maybe some other people who are like, oh, well, if you're going to be part of a circle of knights, you have to be a fighter or you
No.
have to be a paladin or
Well,
you
no, you
have.
wouldn't have to. In fact, actually, they wouldn't. I would not expect that. I would. You could be a heroic knight. You'd be a heroic order of knights. Is still going to need a cleric.
Mm-hmm.
Is still going to need a fighter. Is still going to need a rogue. They're still going to need. I mean, not a rogue, a fighter, but they're still going to need a wizard of some kind. There's some magic user of some kind. They're still going to need that.
Yep.
They would never run into a battle just going, oh, it's just, especially knowing what they know about the domains of dread.
Oops, all fighters.
Like, well, that's not going to do any good. So I think even then they would mix it up so they make sure they've got their people who are controlling the battlefield. They've got their healers, and you got
Well,
to have somebody who can get you in and out of traps.
it all
You know,
it all rolls back into tactics, which
yeah,
I've actually gonna take this opportunity to plug the monsters know what they're doing,
yes,
which great blog, and I have a copy of it as well on my
yes,
bookshelf over here. If you guys have not checked out the monsters know what they're doing, I know for me, like as a DM, that's always one of the hardest things is like figuring out the strategy of my monsters that isn't just okay and I throw a bunch of stuff at the players and
right,
see what sticks. Um, to actually be thinking about like small unit tactics and like
yeah. Think
think
about
about
advantage and how do you get advantage? How do you find yourself in a way to where you can maybe separate one of the party members? I did that Saturday night and I ended up killing one of my characters. I felt so bad
oopsies.
because he got away and I had a cleric who'd thrown down created a big, huge, giant constrictor snake and he got away. And it's like, okay, the constrictor snake goes over and restrains you and he comes over with inflict wounds. And I felt so bad. I,
You got to keep them on their toes somehow.
I hate killing off the characters. It makes, but then fortunately, I got a crew that the people I play with. They're like, okay, I'll just make. He goes, okay, my sister's been searching for me, and so he made up this whole
It just
backstory about how yeah.
immediately right off the bat. Yeah. No. Um as as cruel as you guys think I am sometimes on Red Dirt D&D, I'm actually a big softie. And like anytime I get you down, I'm like, "Oh no. Oh no."
Yeah, and I'm the same way when I play. It's like I'm like I didn't really think I'd hit him that hard. Like I don't know my own strength. I just knew again
Sometimes you
you
get
read this
lucky.
book and that's what you start. That's how you start to think. It's like how do I do the things because I'm this is one of the things that he talks about. And I love is these monsters aren't stupid. Even if they are stupid, they have their natural abilities. They have their instincts, and their instincts, for example, kobolds, they're not gonna go at you one at a time. They're gonna go at a group, so they get their pack tactics. They're not gonna go at you if you're out in the sunlight. There's things that they're going to do, even if they're not necessarily the most intelligent creatures in the world. And even if it's a owlbear, it's going to think about how to best form the battlefield
How
so
do
that I
I
can survive.
get what I want and what I need
Yeah,
and get out of here alive?
right.
Like
How do I
yeah,
survive?
even any base instinctual creature, that's the modus operandi. Like
Yeah.
how do I get what I want? Which 9 times out of 10, how do I get food? How do I get the
Yes.
food and then get back so I can live to eat another day?
Yeah, and I'm no qualms about there's no thing about cowardice or heroism. If I'm up against forces that I can't deal with, I'm running. I'm getting out of there. I'm not gonna. I have no qualms about living to fight another day as an animal.
Right?
So you can easily play it that way. But I do love the way he writes. It's a big book. If you were to go through every one of these characters, but the idea is still just this: you have to control the battlefield. But anyway,
Anyways, yeah, let's say we can gush about that sort of stuff all day long.
yes.
Okay, so we talked about the Keepers of the Phaser.
Yeah. What would you think about having a Mistwalker Dark gift? One of your characters having that to just be able to go from, as my wife says, here to come sick 'em, basically, just.
Yeah, no, I don't like I think that's fantastic. That actually so the way that I probably would do a mist hopping campaign is I would choose a starting point, and that's the point that you are dropped into. So
Mm,
whatever starting realm. And then like that's where I would want you to learn like about like you would adventure there for a while, and then kind of at towards the end of that section,
mm,
then you would learn, oh, there's other worlds out there,
right.
and oh, there's the potential for you to go there. Because my thing about dark gifts, I like them to be acts of desperation.
Right. Well, they should be. Yes.
Like I don't feel like it's something you should just start with. I feel like it has to be something that kind of out of the story itself.
Mm,
Case in point, so um, with my Curse of Strahd campaign that I was running here at the house, um, Connor, who plays Connor on Red Dirt D&D, was playing a paladin at the time, named Bishop. Well, during the Death House sequence,
mm,
Bishop died. Um, and at the time, he knew he was going to be a conquest paladin, but like he hadn't necessarily picked a god.
mm.
Well, as part of his dark gift, he swore fealty to Strahd.
Oh gosh.
Yes. And that was his paladin oath. Was
Uh,
he swore his oath to Strahd as a conquest paladin.
that's the perfect conquest paladin. Yes.
And that's how he got his dark gift.
Yeah.
Was, dark powers resurrected him, and because he swore his fealty to Strahd, he got his dark gift.
Mm,
And then of course, the story continues on, and he is secretly working for Strahd the entire time, and the party has no idea. Like, the players know, but they're being, they're role playing their characters very well, and their characters have no idea that they're
Oh,
supposed
that's
to be working
awesome.
for Strahd, and it was, mwah, mwah.
Love that.
uh,
Love
but
that.
but that for me is how, like, having a dark gift shouldn't just be, oh yeah, I got a dark gift, I got him a
Right.
dime a dozen.
It's not the same as your background.
Mm-mm.
It's there's a reason behind it. Yeah.
So that should definitely be, if you're making a deal with the dark powers, something has had to have gone down
Yeah.
for you
Something
to
went wrong.
something has gone wrong. And now, and again, I could see it, as a, again, you adventure in one domain for a while, and it's like, in order to go to the next domain, you know something comes out of it, and it's just like, well, yeah, the dark powers are offering you this ability,
Yeah.
but there's a reason why they're offering you that ability. So it's not
Yeah.
just like, you know what I'm saying. Make it special.
Right.
Make it special.
Yeah. Yeah. And there were some great missed wanderers. The list of that went on. The collar is spooky as hell. What did they call them? The ultimate mimic. I'm like, oh,
I
it's,
love the idea of the collar. Like,
yeah,
for me, that would be like, if I'm running my domain hopping campaign, that's my BB. That's my
right.
big bad end guy.
And what's really great is because if you're mist hopping, you don't have one dark lord to oversee. And when you go back to the first or the second chapter where it talks about creating a villain, it's a lot harder to create a villain when you're not dealing with one domain. So how do you create a villain that not only is creepy as hell and would be a wonderful end boss battle, but he could be in the entire thing, constantly changing form, constantly harassing your party. He could be in the entire adventure, and the party has no idea, maybe
Party,
until
yeah,
the
the
end.
party the party doesn't realize it until you get to the very last scene, and it's like the collar swaps through all of these different disguises
Yeah,
that they've worn over the course of the adventure. And it's like, oh, it's like the child you helped at one point, the old woman who, you know
yeah,
gave you
led you on a certain
directions.
path. Yeah,
And it's like, yeah, and then it just, you know it's like, okay, but what are you really?
yeah.
And it's
That no
just,
one knows. Yeah, it's
it's like,
awesome.
it doesn't matter.
Yeah, be a
But
great as a DM. It would be a great villain to play.
ugh, I love the idea of the collar. I love the concept of the collar. I just love, it's just this, it's just this powerful eldritch being that is just
Mm,
hopping between these domains, and you're just following in its tracks, like trying to finally track it down at the behest of the dark powers, who are just frustrated with this thing.
yes.
And they're wanting to trap it in its own domain, and of course the collar is like, nah,
I don't think so.
nah, nah.
But this chapter was the one that really got, or this second part, the third chapter was the one that really got my juices flowing. And I thought, because you could have so much fun. And granted, we talked last week. There are several of these domains where you could go 0 to 20 and never leave the domain and have plenty of adventures, never get bored. But this idea of a domain hopping campaign, and again, I hope in the next 6 months, maybe a year, that people will start putting these on DM's Guild,
Mm-hmm.
because I really want to play them.
I want to
Um,
I want to find out more about Firen. Like, I don't know what it is, but Firen Zalhanan.
uh,
I'm just like, who are you?
yes.
I want to know more about you. You intrigue me, good sir.
Mhm. Yeah, and I don't know if he's been mentioned, uh, if he was mentioned in any of the others, or if he was a completely unique creation for this.
I mean, I've seen some things on Twitter that make me a little suspicious, but I'm definitely like I definitely want to look more into Fearin,
Yeah.
because I don't know. And I don't know if it's just the artwork.
Well, yes.
And I'm just like, because as we've talked about previously, I have that problem where everybody's pretty.
Yes.
And Fearin, like the Fearin artwork definitely does it for
Oh,
me.
yeah. Although Matt. I lost his name. Critical Role.
Matt Mercer.
Matt Mercer look to him.
It's mostly the hair.
Yeah. Oh, yes. Of course. It's dark. It's dark stray brown hair, which I'm totally jealous of. Yes. Uh, and I was jealous of it before I started losing my hair. My little brother had just long, straight black hair, dark brown hair, and I'm like, oh, man, I
If we
want
get
that. I should get a wig.
we can get you a wig. It's fine. um, Actually, no. So I've seen on TikTok lately, and I've been thinking about it. So a Strahd cosplayer has crossed my TikTok uh, page a couple of times. So I'm thinking about putting together a Sergey.
Uh,
And of course, I was like looking around for it, and like, there's not much out there for Sergey. Like, I don't think there's ever been any official artwork uh, for Sergey, his brother. And I'm like, this is like one of the main, like, this is the main guy that he's like always so upset about. Like, why are we sleeping on this? So I've thought about throwing together a um, Sergey von Zarovich cosplay just to mess with the
yeah.
Strahds of the world.
Yeah, we need to do more cosplayers from D&D. That's certainly, I think.
Oh, definitely. Like if there's one thing I want to see more of, um,
Yeah.
and I always love seeing people's like their D&D OCs, because I've seen a lot of people's D&D OCs on TikTok, and I love them so much. But of course, there's only a few handful of people who cosplay as the NPCs.
Right.
So I would like to see some of that. I mean, I know.
Especially because there's so many great ones. I mean, even outside of this, someone dressing up as Mordenkainen, or Elminster, um, oh, what's her name from Waterdeep? She was the Elminster's daughter. She was the Open Lord of Waterdeep.
Silverhand. Is it Laeral
Yes,
Silverhand?
Laeral Silverhand. Yeah.
Yeah.
And now, again, the only problem with cosplaying as any one of these NPCs is, unlike walking in as Captain Marvel or any of your anime characters, you're not going to be immediately recognized.
You might have to explain it.
Yeah. But
Of course, I actually will say I've had some of my D&D buddies who point at a Dark Link and go, Drow?
oh yes,
And I say, no, Dark Link.
Darklink, yes. Are you Drist? Uh,
Oops. Oops.
yeah, you notice I didn't go there when I said cosplay, because that'd be too easy. That'd be too easy. Although, you know, going as Bruner Battlehammer, even Caddy Bree would be.
Actually, so I was like complaining. So last Halloween at Spirit Halloween, right? They actually had licensed Dritz and Caddy Bree.
Really?
Yeah. They had Dritz,
That's
Caddy Bree,
amazing.
and then the Dungeon Master from the
Oh,
cartoon.
yes. Which I have seen the costume for, yes.
Yeah, but like I was, because actually Connor was working at the Spirit Halloween there for a while.
Mm.
And I was like complaining to Connor, and I was like, "Where's my Jarlaxle?" Because as we all know, I simp for Jarlaxle. But I'm like, "Where's my Jarlaxle?" Of course, Connor just points to the pirate section.
That is true. That is
got a whole
true.
section, honey. I was like, "You right."
That's
You
true.
right.
Just get some good makeup and some pointed ears, paint those up, and put on a pirate costume with a big.
I have plans.
Now Aiden, when he DM'd the Dragon Heist, he had this big, massive hat with a feather in it that he would wear to basically kind
Why
of
is
cosplay.
his hat so big? It's full of secrets.
It's full of secrets. Exactly. Okay, so So then so you really enjoyed. Was there any other of the Mist Wanderers that grabbed your attention?
Um, I'm trying to think because like I know like Jander Sunstar. Just I love this idea of him, um, like uh, he's the first one to test the apparatus from Mordant, and then
Yes,
he's like. It acts like a prism, so now there's like 5 million Jander Sunstars,
that's right.
and you don't know which one's the real one.
And wasn't that to fix there was a problem with him in Strahd? Wasn't that?
Jander didn't appear in Strahd, but Jander did appear in Descent into Avernus.
Oh, that's what it was. Yes.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
And so, how
Jander.
do you explain the fact that he's like
Yeah,
there and oh well, there's thousands of him.
there's there's so many Jander Sunstars just over the multiverse. There's 5 million versions of this guy just all running around. I'm like, I don't know why, but that just makes me laugh. Just the
Yes.
whole, I am Jander Sunstar.
Will the real gender Sunstar please stand
Stand
up?
up. I love Larissa Snowmain. Like, I'm not gonna lie.
Oh,
The riverboat captain. Um,
another way you could get your characters from one domain to the next
mm-hmm.
and have a lot of fun with it. She's yeah, it's a really great idea.
And then as we were talking about how okay they finally kind of fixed Van Reichten.
Yeah.
Because he started out and like in fifth edition, his introduction in Curse of Strahd, he was very prickly and like nobody knew why. And
Mm.
now they've kind of explained it a little better. Since he has that curse on him, it's like oh, anyone you love, will have a terrible fate.
Mm.
And so he's constantly pushing people away from himself to protect them. It's like oh my gosh, that's so sad.
Yeah.
And explains a lot.
Yeah.
um,
Yeah. Some good stuff there.
Of course,
So,
as Denevere.
oh yeah.
I'm very very lesbian for Ez.
Mm.
I ship her with Tatiana, as we've talked about in the past.
Yeah.
I don't know. I have a weakness for
Yeah.
strong, competent female fighters.
Especially if you go against their own family to because they just realize this is a wrong thing to do, and then becomes almost a hero.
Mm-hmm.
That's fantastic.
Yes.
So we move on to chapter 4, as we do, where
as
we're talking about
should.
we should.
That's how reading books work.
Yeah.
I'm pretty sure.
Well, and again, the way this book was put together, I originally thought, well, why are you putting this here when we already talked about it in section 2? But it made more sense. And again, why the teaching ability of this book, the way it is put together is so clever, which it just shows the growth of Wizards of the Coast editing, their editors, their writers over the past 7 years, and how much they have grown, especially if you look at this book compared to the DM's Guide or the Player's Handbook, which both are just all over the place. It seems like it's all over the place, but it does have a purpose for being here. Mm-hmm. In between the Domains of Dread and chapter 5 of talking about the actual adventures and monsters. So I love it. I love again the fact that we go back as with Tasha's, we go back to the importance of a zero session. Why is it important to have one of these? And people outside of Wizards of the Coast really push this idea of a zero session so much longer than finally with Tasha's and with this book, the idea of, okay, let's put it down in our rules. What is a zero session and why is it important? And this chapter really focuses on that. Okay, you know what your domain is going to be. You know what your Dreadlord's going to be. You've got to sit down and talk to your players because you can't have a horror campaign if you've got people in the campaign who are not going to want to do horror. If they're wanting a high fantasy and you throw horror at them, it's not going to be fun for anybody. So
yeah, it's and this is something like I know it's kind of become, for some reason it's become a hot button issue in the community. Because you have these grognards who are just like, well, back in my day, we didn't worry about all this sensitivity stuff, blah 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 blah. Blah. And it's like, the whole argument. Oh, my parents spanked me and I turned out just fine.
Yeah.
Did you though? Did you?
Yeah. And just because you did not mean the other 90% did not. So, or did as well. So yeah, no. No, I didn't wear a seatbelt and I was fine. Yeah, well, a lot of kids also died.
Yeah.
So
But yeah, but no, there is such an importance on managing expectations, and
yeah,
that's really what a good session zero does. And even then, I would still even say, like, you definitely have to come at it with your players already have an idea of what sort of campaign you're going to run. Like,
right.
it should be in the name.
Yes.
If you say, okay, hey guys, I want to run a Ravenloft campaign
Mhm.
in a domain of dread.
Right.
It's going to be more horror based. It's going to be more like this. Um, we'll do it. We If you're interested in playing, our session zero is blah blah
Right.
blah date.
Yeah.
Um, and
Yeah,
that's
because it talks
really
about the survey. The survey should not be handed out to the zero session. The survey should be handed out way before that, because it'll give them time to fill it out. Of course, I think we filled out our zero session, but that's a little different. It wasn't a horror campaign, but um,
well, and
I
the one that I like to use from Monty Cook, um, that one really can be filled out fairly quickly, just because
yeah.
it has so much that's pre-populated already.
Mm,
And the Monty Cook version, which is available through the free PDF Consent in Gaming,
mm,
it has a stoplight system. So with the stoplight system, it has a green light, which basically, again, green means go, include it, no problem. Yellow is basically, I'm okay with this in certain situations, or I'm
mm,
okay with this if you warn about it ahead of time. And then there's red, which of course red is, no
mm,
go, do not include. I
right.
am this makes me very uncomfortable.
Mm,
Um, and so that way it's a little easier for your players to um, give you what their personal limits are
right.
in such a way that they don't, like, there is no expectation for them to explain themselves. You don't have to tell me why you marked a red light on something. All I know is that, okay, yeah, this is a no-go topic.
Right.
Because there's a lot of times where there's a lot of phobias and a lot of triggers that can come up in a campaign that you as the DM might not necessarily think about, and sometimes your players might not think about it
Right.
because they're not sure if it's going to be included or not. Which is also why systems like the X card are super important as
Mm,
well if you're running a campaign that can be, has the possibility to be very triggery.
yeah.
Um, which
Yeah.
the X card system, again, it's another very simple system explained in Consent in Gaming. But basically, you just have some sort of signal. Like, I like to do index cards with giant black X's on them. And as
Yeah.
soon as somebody throws that card down, basically that means, hey, whatever's going on right now is making me very uncomfortable. I need you to
Mhm.
stop.
Yeah, we had that. Our DM had that for the when we ran Avernus,
Mm-hmm.
which I thought was a great idea, because there are certain situations in that it's just, it can get very disturbing, and for someone who, especially you. And I see. I can't stand the grognards who are like, oh, I don't have. Why we didn't used to be sensitive about other people. It's like, well, you know what? You aren't the only person on the planet, and
That's why nobody outside of your little group wants to play with you.
yeah, because we want to be able to play with others, and we want to, and it is all supposed to be all having a good time, and a good time sometimes means horror. Now, I granted, I don't. I think there are times when you can scare the players, as long as you're not touching on to. I mean, because I go to see a horror movie, I expect to be scared.
Yeah.
Uh,
Yeah, and again, it all goes back to managing expectations.
yeah,
If you're going to see a horror film, you know, you've seen the trailer,
right,
you've gotten a gist of what to expect from that horror film, so you have an idea if it's something that you can conceivably handle or not. Because
right.
not someone can handle Friday the 13th, but as soon as you throw them into Hellraiser, it's like
Yeah, yeah, exactly. Or vice versa. Or and I'm not good with the whole body, parts being chopped off and stuff. That really I can't do that. But
some people are good with Hellraiser, but don't take them near Saw,
yeah, exactly.
which is me.
So it just yeah. So it was, and I'm the same way. I can't do Saw. I've never watched any one of the movies, and I never will because I just. But there are some great, it's wonderful stuff out there. But and that's what the expectations is all about. Making sure that your players are having as good a time because horror can be great. It increases your adrenaline. It shows it brings that fight or flight feeling going through your body, and it puts you on edge, and it's like riding a roller coaster, or jumping out of a plane. It's that kind of feeling. That's why people enjoy horror so much. But there are certain levels of horror that certain people can do and certain people can't. And I think even if you ask a horror aficionado who just it's all they do, I'm sure they would say there are certain parts of certain horrors that they would not be cool with. So know your players, know your audience. There's nothing wrong with that,
And yeah,
because it just makes it more enjoyable.
yeah, and make sure to have an open dialogue, because that's
Mhm.
really, like, at the end of the day, that's what it's about, and that's what
Mhm.
all of these tools are about, is opening up the dialogue and
Yeah,
being available and willing to listen as a DM. And then yeah, it might come down to, well, I'm sorry, these are the themes of the campaign. If you can't handle them, I love you and Godspeed.
yeah,
There's no hard feelings. There's no, as a player, sometimes you have to be like, yes, I'm sorry, this is not the campaign for me. And you don't have to say anything else. You don't have to, you don't really even have to explain yourself. I mean, yeah, you're gonna miss your friends and it's gonna suck, but at the end of the day, you do have to do what's best for you.
right,
And yeah, so there may be some times and some campaigns that you just have to sit out because it's going to touch on something that you might not be able to handle.
right.
And I will I will come right out and say there have been times that I have left tables
Hmm.
in mid game, based either on the content of the game, the way the DM is handling it, or the way the players are reacting.
Right.
Because that's something that we don't often talk about a lot, is um, there definitely needs to be more sensitivity towards certain things,
Mhm.
um, and more and of course, willingness to, and it's not even necessarily just a willingness to speak up, but definitely a, don't be afraid to walk away.
Right.
Because I've done it multiple times, from where I'm just like, I can't, like, whatever's going on, this is not for me right now, so I will pack up my toys and go.
Right. And
And
it might not just be the content, it might be something else going on at the table. You would not be the first player to leave a table for any reason. And you do not, I don't think you have to explain yourself.
yeah.
If you and the players and the DM can get together and figure out maybe another direction, if it's making, then great. That's fine too. But I think it's harder when you're a first time player. So my advice to all first time players is, if you are uncomfortable in any way, shape, or form, there used to not be. If you got one game, that was it. There was only one game you could play on. That's not the way anymore. There are many games out there, either online or in real life. There are games out there, and you're welcome. There are so many that will be welcoming to you. So don't feel ashamed ever about having to leave a game, because
there
it
are
happens.
It happens. There are ways to find your people and
Mm-hmm.
to find groups that will be respectful of you and be respectful of the things that you need out of your D&D.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, so it's yeah,
Yeah.
it's
Uh,
not there's absolutely no shame in it. There's absolutely no
no,
judgment. And if if those people are judging you for it, then they were
that's
assholes
that's
in
the
the
other
first
that
place.
that's the other reason why you should be leaving. If they're judging you for that, then you should be leaving anyway.
Yeah, you should.
So
It's time to go.
hopefully,
It's time to go.
hopefully you have a party that go or a group that says, okay, yeah, this isn't going to work for you. This isn't working for us. So, Godspeed, and maybe we'll even help you find somebody, and maybe you can even come back when the situation is different.
Yeah, I'm about to
If
say if
if
you.
if they are judging you, then that's part of the problem.
Yeah.
They should not be judging you. No one should be judging each other. It's a game we're all supposed to be playing and having fun and being able to be yourself, being someone else.
I can't tell you how many times I've had to because obviously as we've talked about I'm your favorite non-binary DM. All my little NBs out there, I love you and I appreciate you and you're valid. I've had so many times where people insist on even sometimes just using the wrong pronouns consistently after I've told them like, hey
Yeah.
guys, I'm not a chick, I'm
Mhm.
not a girl, don't don't do it, and they insist on doing it. I'm like, okay, bye. I'm like, why are you leaving?
It's like,
Well,
because you're disrespecting me.
you're being disrespectful of me and of who I am, and that's not a conductive environment to me having a good time. So I'm gonna go.
Yeah.
Um, bye.
Yeah. It's about having fun. If it's not a fun situation, run. Um, but I do like the fact that they do keep revisiting in this chapter. If someone's feeling uncomfortable, stop. Let's talk about this. Maybe, okay, get to the cliffhanger really fast. Maybe we have to end a session really fast. Let's figure out what's going on here because again, this is a game. It's about having fun, and if you are not having fun,
I mean, I
you
will tell you
know,
guys a story. Like, and I think I've mentioned it before, just plain out, where I was playing in a Shadowrun campaign, and it was with some guys who were from like Scandinavia. So there was one guy who was playing his mage very, very, like, did not want to be part of the team, like, was always just and it came down to a point where like we were like in a parking garage waiting for somebody, and these gangers on a motorcycle just like were driving up, and we roll initiative. um he gets a super high initiative, and so he manages to go first. He casts a force 12 spell. Now, the way magic works in Shadowrun is you can basically set the power the power of the spell by setting the force of the spell.
mm,
Typically, 1 through 6 is your basic kind of power levels. Anything above 6 is basically overkill.
right,
So basically a force 12 spell would be basically about the equivalent of like a bomb going off.
yeah,
Um he kills the gangers like outright. Sets off all the car alarms in the parking lot. We're already in a very precarious place because we're technically not supposed to be in that parking garage anyways. And so my character and our street samurai were like, oh, no, we got to get out of here. We're booking, because we know security's coming, police are coming. We can't get out of anywhere because he basically just set up an EMP.
right.
Um, and we had to stop the game. And it was like, because it had gotten to a point where it's like your character has consistently made decisions like this that
Mm,
are screwing us over.
yeah,
And yeah, we had a long conversation about it. And basically like we told the guy, it's like, okay, your character either shapes up and starts playing nice, or you bring an entirely new character.
right.
And he chose to bring an entirely new character because he was using the excuse of, it's just what my character would
Oh,
do.
that's a horrible excuse. Don't ever use that. If you ever find those words coming out of your mouth, you're doing something
You're
wrong
doing it wrong.
because it's not what your character would do because
No,
your character wouldn't have survived
no.
and your character wouldn't be in a party of people. They would have left you, but it's you can't leave them And, I'm although there's I've been in parties where I'm like, you know what, I'm walking away.
we're not
I'm
we're
just
not with him.
yeah, I'm just gonna walk away. And you know, so and then it could lead to PvP, and no one wants that. So
No, no, that's never fun.
yeah,
Um, well, Michael, we are a little over an hour now.
yeah. Any final thoughts on this so far? We gone?
Um, Not particularly. I think we've covered. I mean, I think we've covered it pretty well. Um, just kind of in general.
Yeah.
I will say that I am definitely glad that Wizards is finally has finally released a book where they really have codified a lot of the conversations that we've been having in the community about, you know, how to establish your boundaries and how to honor people's boundaries.
Mm.
And it actually, like, yes, now it's actually in the text where someone can point to it and be like, guys,
Yeah.
because there unfortunately are
It's in the
people out
rules.
there who, if it's not in the official text, will
Yeah.
completely ignore it.
Yeah. Yeah. And that's with this and with Tasha's has finally Wizards of the Coast has grown, and you could tell it's grown. And I'm so proud to because there was a time when Wizards was not, and um, it helps that it's become a popular game.
Yeah.
It's very typical of something that becomes popular. You have to you once you start becoming popular, you have to start being able to sell it to other people. The same thing happened in comics. When comics was just a teenage boys, no problem.
Well, I
But
mean,
when
depends on your comic too, because even going back,
no, no, that's what I'm saying.
Captain America has always been punching Nazis. Like, let's be real here.
No, no, but that's what I'm saying. It's advanced. It's become more popular recently. And so it has had to realize, oh, we have people, or we have customers who are not the teenage white boy. So we have to make our product accessible to everybody. And that's really where Wizards is, because Wizards for a long time it really we're just we're big games being played by a bunch of white men, straight white men. And they've realized that as it's grown, as more people are buying it, they've got to go, well, no, we have a wide variety of a customer base, and we have to start realizing that we have to accommodate everybody. And that doesn't exclude anybody. All the white straight guys, you are not excluded from this. Just because it accepts other people, it's not a piece of pie. You don't get less because other people are getting more.
Don't.
It's accepting of everybody.
It's the what is it? It's the great. It's the M&M's metaphor, right? So there's a metaphor going on a long time ago where you have two bowls of candy, right? Two bowls of M&Ms. There's one bowl of M&Ms that only has a couple. There's only a few M&Ms in there. Not very many. And then you have the other bowl that has a whole bunch of M&Ms in it, right? And you hand those two bowls to the kids, and the kid who got the fewer M&Ms is like, "Hey, I don't like why do I only have like 5 M&Ms while they have like 50?"
Yeah.
And you're like, "Oh, I'm so sorry. Here, let me pour more M&Ms into your bowl." And then the kid who, started out with a whole bunch of M&Ms is like, "Hey, why are they getting more M&Ms?" It's like, "Dude, your bowl is overflowing.
That's right. Yes.
Everything is catered to you."
You have a full bowl of M&Ms. I think that should just be everybody. Whenever somebody says, "Wait, look, you've got a full bowl of M&Ms. Now start
Got a full
sharing them."
bowl of M&Ms over there. Like, you're already starting from such a place of representation and
Yeah.
such a place of, everything is catered. Everything is already catered to you.
Yeah.
Just because I give some more M&Ms, some more representation, some more accommodation to somebody else doesn't mean that I'm taking from your bowl.
Yeah. Yeah. I always like the analogy of a rising tide. Everybody rises up.
Mm-hmm.
You know, then when we all rise up together, it's a rising tide. It's not like one is going to be higher than the other. We all move together and we all get to grow together. And that's where I think Wizards is finally at that. And next week we'll talk more about running the actual horror games, which I love. More about this again. Just we've gone through the how to run them, and now or what to run,
We've
but
talked
now
we've
how to
talked
run,
about
how to
what we're
really
gonna
get
run.
what to run. Yeah.
Now we're gonna
Uh,
talk about how we're gonna run it,
yeah.
which
Yeah.
apparently is where I stand out.
That's well, and a lot of these I will say right now, it's like a lot of these should be used in your regular game, even if it's not a horror game. But we'll get to that next week.
We'll,
So
we'll get to that next week. We'll talk about that. We'll talk about that later. We've still got plenty more to talk about on A&M Talk D&D. As always, I am Ash King.
I'm Michael Cross.
And until we meet again, the Raven flies at midnight.